Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On this show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, franchising, and more. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest Podcast. Let's get started. DealQuest community, this is a solocast, and in this solocast, I wanted to talk about a process that I take clients through who are interested in doing deals to grow their business. We do this most often for firms that are looking to start M&A programs, meaning being a buyer on the M&A side. But a lot of these principles can apply to any kind of deal type. If you want to, become a licensor, or you want to do joint ventures, you can apply it to really anything because these fundamental steps are important. I'm going to be talking about it in an M&A context just because that's what we do it most for. But again, any type of deal you're looking to grow your business, I think these steps are great. And obviously, we do these for clients. We're happy to do them for anybody. But I want to give you the steps, and if you're not going to use us, at least give you some tools to be able to figure out some of this stuff on your own. And some of the reasons that I do this and the way I do it is that, we certainly have many clients who come to us and say, hey, Corey, I want to start acquiring companies and doing some other kind of deals. And what should my deal structure be? Because, that's natural. Ask a lawyer, right? That seems to be a natural place to start. And maybe some of them may be a little surprised when I say, listen, there are 5 steps before you get to deal structure, 5 or 6 steps that you should be taking before you even get there. And I will tell you that I've never done one of these whiteboarding sessions where folks don't get significant value. These are not just theoretical. We've helped folks build out deal programs. I can't tell you how many platforms and companies we've helped create that are doing multiple deals based upon the work that we've done with them on these whiteboarding sessions. And I got to tell you, I love doing them. I mean, they are, a huge amount of fun. I mean, the visioning, planning, strategy, that kind of stuff is just a passion of mine. So let me lay it out for you, right? You decide that you want to grow through, again, I'm going to use M&A as an example. You want to be a buyer. And this can apply in any industry, any size deal, et cetera. Well, again, most attorneys are going to say, okay, what, do you have a term sheet or an LOI for a particular deal that you want me to document? Well, no. What if I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do it? Okay, well, and a lot of attorneys will just give you some options. Okay, are you going to buy for cash? Is there going to be an equity piece? Here are some deal structures you can have. I believe, and listen, anybody who has been a listener to the DealQuest podcast, whether it's been for the 6.5 or so years we've been on from episode 1, which I am grateful is true for a chunk of you, or it's just as a recent listener to even a few episodes, that I often talk about things maybe that some of the lawyers don't talk about. I talk about the internal journey. I want to make sure that you as a business leader and executive are moving forward on deals or any other kind of business decision from the right place, and that when you get to wherever you think you want to get to, you're actually going to be happy and satisfied, and it's going to help you achieve your objectives and goals. Because I've seen too many entrepreneurs, because of external pressures or assumptions based upon what they think they should be doing, all this entrepreneurial wisdom out there, grow and do things in a way that doesn't actually end up having them be happy and satisfied, isn't necessarily best for their business. So where do we start? When I do these whiteboarding sessions, the first question we ask, the first topic, and I have a questionnaire I send out to them, they fill out in advance. Then we sit down in a room for half a day, 3-4 hours normally, and then we do a write-up for them. First question on that questionnaire, and the first question we talk about in the whiteboarding session is why. If we don't start with why, there's 2 things. First of all, for me as an advisor, as an attorney, as a strategist, if I don't know you why, I can't really help you get where you want to go. And for your purposes, if you're not clear on your why, then again, you're going to probably be doing something out of some other objective because somebody told you you have to do this. So because you're growing from an ego point of view, that may not be, the best driver, right? So let's really dig in on what your why is, on why you're looking to grow, why you're looking to grow through, let's say, M&A. And if the why is that you want to expand geographically because there's opportunities with clients in other parts of of the country or the world. Okay, great. That's the why. If your why is that you are looking to add certain capabilities to your firm, to your company, because the clients, the customers need those additional capabilities and they're now going elsewhere. And it would really make sense for you to bring it in, not only from a monetary point of view, but from a client experience and integration point of view. Great. If the why is that that you want to exit in 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and you want to grow the company to increase the multiples because bigger companies, as long as they run efficiently and even the margins stay good, that they get higher multiples, that's fine as well. Like if that additional enterprise value is the driver and you're clear on that and you're clear the consequences of that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like I have no judgment on any of these reasons why you're looking to grow, but you want to be clear on what they are because they're very, very different drivers, which will lead us to different decisions at the next step, right? Okay, so first we're going to spend a bunch of time getting clear on your why. And when I'm in with clients in the whiteboarding sessions, it's not as simple as saying why and they just give me an answer. Usually there's follow-up questions, exploration, taking things that cut deeper. And I've shared this before on the podcast. One of the great methodologies that I love for that, it's called the 5 whys, and that is something that the CEO or chairman of Honda used to do, where why do you want to grow? Oh, I want to get bigger. Okay, why do you want to get bigger? Okay, well, I think it'll service our clients better. Well, why do you think it'll service the clients better? Well, because they have these other needs, and if we add those, it really is a better client experience on a integrated basis. All right, why is that important to you? Well, because I really care about my clients, and I really believe this will give them a much better experience, make them happier. Obviously, it'll help our company as well, right? So you see how you get a deeper cut each time when you go through the 5 whys, and I think I only did 4 there. So we're going to delve into the why. Now we have the reasons why, right? We're driving, right? So now what we want to look at is, okay, who are we targeting? Because obviously, if you are going to, let's say, acquire companies or do joint ventures, licensing deals, or whatever it is, there are a lot of different players out there in different geographies, different sectors, different sizes, different models. So who is it that you are looking to target, right? Because this is the other thing, and we've talked about this a lot. It is so easy to have a deal program be a distraction. You still have a company to run, and especially if you're not a bigger firm that has a dedicated deal team, right? A corporate development person, all right? People do due diligence, the finance folks, all of those folks, it could be a big distraction. So what you really want to do is you want to make sure you're not wasting time on things that are not going to be effective, right, and align with your why and your value proposition, which we're going to talk about as well in a moment, right? So let's go to your value prop, right, first, because you can look at it either way. You can either look at it, who am I targeting? All right, what's the value prop that's going to attract them? But really, the value proposition should be more than just a marketing thing out to these folks. The value proposition should be the thing that is truly true about your company, right? And then it'll give you who you would attract as well. So let's do it. Let's do it in that order. And again, you can do whatever order you want. So what is your key value proposition, right? If your why is that you want to grow the type of services, or geographically, or add certain types of talent, or provide a solution for retiring entrepreneurs, right? Because you can take their clients on and maybe move them into a more tech savvy environment or whatever it is, right? What do you bring to the table for these potential companies that might be selling to you otherwise doing deals with you? Because here's the thing: if you're in any kind of good industry, and most fellows know we do a lot of financial services. I mean, the wealth management space, for example, is a super hot market. There are huge numbers of buyers. It's true in tech. It's true in a lot of other sectors as well that we work in. And there are competitors out there. So what makes you different? What's that value prop? We talk a lot about, in industries where there's PE money and you don't have, let's say, that PE backing. How do you compete with the PE money, right? How do you create a value proposition? Well, my first thing is you don't compete with them. At least you don't compete with them at their game, because the game of PE-backed aggregators is to pay top dollar to speed to close. It's speed of growth. It's the second bite of the apple and the multiple arbitrage on the rollover equity. If you don't have the PE money, you're not going to be able to compete on that value proposition. You may have something very different, whether it's the culture at the firm, whether it's the opportunity for internal growth, whether it's the opportunity for more say, whether it's the opportunity for folks to expand their offering, right, to their clients, because maybe they only do X and now your company brings in, X, Y, and Z. Maybe they're just tired of running the administration and everything of the company. And part of the value prop is that they get to just focus on what they love and what they're great at, which might be client service or sales, or maybe, ops or tech or research or new product development. So we figure out what that value proposition, and then we look at who we're targeting, right? Or again, either way you get there works for you. So now the key thing is, okay, who are we targeting? For a lot of folks, they look at who we're targeting first, and then they look at the value proposition. For other folks, they do the other way. But either way, at the end of those two processes, you can end up with, here is my why, here is the value prop, here's who I'm targeting. Or here's my why, here's who I'm targeting, here's the value prop to them and why they would be interested in that. So now what you have is a much more limited pool and clearer focus on who you're going to. You have the value prop that you're going out to them. It's tied to and driven by your why. And now we're ready to start looking at, okay, well, next step is who's the team, right? But before we go out, we got to make sure we have the team in place, whether that's internally or externally, right? Like I said, putting together a deal program, right? Whether you're a buyer, on an M&A deal or any other kind of deal program, that you're going to do more than a one-off, right? So a lot of folks we do this whiteboarding session work for are folks that are looking to do multiple deals, right? So if you're going to do multiple deals, you better know who inside and outside is going to be on your deal team to make these happen. And that includes whoever is going to source the deals for you, whether that's an internal corporate development person, whether that's an investment banker, whether that's a recruiter, whether that's a consultant, whoever that is, right? Who's on the financial side? Do you have internal financial people? Do you have an external CFO service? Who hopefully is its deal experience is very different with accountants, CFOs, controllers, those kind of folks, if they have deal experience and if they don't, right? Same thing with lawyers, right? Your general corporate lawyer is not the person to put your M&A program together, right? So who's going to be on the legal side? Then you've got, all the integration folks. You got tech integration, you got HR integration, culture, all that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you have the team in place, or that you can, you have the key team in place that you need up front, and that you're going to be filling in the team. So let's say it's, you need more help on tech integration. Okay, well, you may not have that person in place day one, because you got to shop, you got to put together the model of programs, all this stuff, and then you got to shop. But you got to get somebody in place before you close your first deal, and you need to integrate them. Okay, so now we're clear on our why. We're clear on who we're targeting. We know the value proposition. We're going out to them. We have the deal team in place. Now do we go to deal structure? No. One more step. We have to go to model. We have to build a model. What does that mean about building a model? Well, again, if you're going to do one deal, you don't need a model. You get, whatever that deal structure is, it is. But if you're going to do multiple deals, you want to build a model, because you want to do each deal the same. I'm not saying there can't be some variations, some tweaks, some negotiations, but at a fundamental model level, you don't want, or you could have a variation. You could have two options under a model, but you want to make sure that you're doing that consciously. And you don't want, like what a lot of folks do is they make a mistake by not doing a model, and they do, and some of it is just because it sort of shows up organically. They do one deal here, another opportunity shows up, they do one there. They haven't thought through. They certainly haven't done this whiteboarding process. And now they've got, 3, 4, 5 deals, all with different models, different structures, different things, because they negotiated each of them individually. And that causes a lot of problems. It causes problems on your cap table if you have different classes of equity, if that's part of your model, all right? It causes problems on if these folks talk to each other and there's very different deals and one feels like they got a better deal, it's harder to integrate. And it's certainly harder. And again, we're talking about folks here that want to create a deal program where they're going to do a lot of them. It's harder to replicate. Like, the best acquirers, for example, who are doing M&A deals, find their model, right? And then it becomes repeatable. It's rinse and repeat, to oversimplify it a bit. But, even let's take your legal documents. If you have a model on the way you do stuff, and then we're going to get to having a deal structure within that model, then not only can you have a template set of legal documents that you're going to use over and over again, but you also have a template way that, your financial people analyze the deal, underwrite the deal, right? You have, systems and processes on the way deals are evaluated, the way due diligence gets done, the way people are integrated, all that kind of stuff. And you can do it over and over and over again, which makes it efficient and repeatable and profitable. If you're doing deals all differently, it causes a lot of problems. So what we want to do is we want to decide what the model is. Well, what are some of the big chunks in the model, right? Okay, well, again, we're going to take it from a buyer M&A point of view, okay? Are we doing all cash deals? Are we creating an equity class for some rollover equity? How are we paying it over time, right? Even if it is cash or equity, whatever, are we conceptually, depending upon what kind of industry we are in, et cetera, do we want some contingency or retention requirement or back end, right? So, for example, in a lot of service businesses where it's important the clients come over and stay, you will have models that include back end money. I mean, most deals, you're not going to pay 100% up front, right? Because you want some back end money to just make sure that things check out. There's no breaches of work, percentages of warranties, no liabilities that show up post closing. So you're always going to have a back end, but the back end, the question is that back end payment or payments over time only contingent upon representations and warranties being true, like, nothing coming up out of the blue, no indemnities, no issues, no liabilities that show up? Or is there another contingency like retention of business, for example? And in service businesses, that's pretty common, right? If you're in a product manufacturing business, or a supplier business, or let's say you're in a business where largely the value of the firm are assets you're buying. Well, okay, then you're getting those assets up front. But if ongoing, revenue, which is true in almost every business, right? But it's a little different if you have long-term contracts, for example, versus if you have no contracts or 30-day cancelable contracts. So a lot of these factors in terms of who your industry, the types of relationships and arrangements with clients and customers, the contractual length and other factors with those customers and clients will help dictate what generally the model is going to be around, things like, retention requirements. If you're bringing in retired, folks, meaning, that they're looking to get out of the business and they're going to be gone at closing, or they're going to do a 6-month consulting arrangement, that will dictate a part of the model that will be very different, for example, than somebody who is younger coming in, is going to stay with the company, wants to continue to grow. Because with the latter class, you might be building in some sort of earnout piece. If somebody's not staying around, they're less interested in an earnout. If somebody's going to be around and they say, hey, I don't want to cut off my upside on growth, or they're in a particular, slump period and they think it's going to come back, you might have an earnout piece, where there's a CAGR, meaning that, they have to hit a certain growth rate and then they get additional purchase price. Or are you going to do that on the employment side, which is ordinary income to them? It's very different, right? So a lot of these, when you're at the model level, you're not actually drilling down to the actual deal terms, but you're deciding conceptually what components you want as part of the deal model, right? Cash, equity, back end, retention, yes or no, growth CAGRs, yes or no, ongoing employment, for who, founders, other parts of the team members. Is there any contractual, upside that they get for bringing in, additional business? Are you buying their brand, or are they keeping, I mean, you're usually you're not going to let them keep the brand, probably because that's going to be competitive, but, are you going to be using the brand? Is it important to them that they keep a legacy branding, or that, you're going to take it and then kill that brand and roll it into yours, right? So you're going to figure out these big chunks in the model. And when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're going back to, what is your why? right? Who are you targeting? What's the value proposition? You're going to be building the model from that place. And that's the reason why when people start later, whether they jump to deal structure or maybe they start at model, they understand there has to be a model before deal structure, but they haven't done the why. They haven't figured out who they're targeting. They haven't really figured out the value proposition. The model might not end up aligning, right, with ultimately what they're trying to achieve there. So you want to align the model. All right, so now we've aligned the model. Now we say, okay, what is the actual deal structure in that model? We said in the model, we think there's a reason to have an equity class because the kind of folks we're buying, right, will want to continue to maintain some level of feeling like they're owners, right? By the way, I'm just giving that as an example. You might do on cash this. Well, if that's part of your model, now when we get down to the actual deal structure, what are we talking about specifically? What kind of equity class is it? Is it the same equity the founders have? Is it a different class of equity? If we're an S corp, we can't have multiple classes of equity. So, are we going to be a C corp? Well, there's double taxation. Are we going to be? Are we an LLC? Are we going to have to restructure our entity for this equity class or not? But so what type of equity is it? Right? Okay, we said there's going to be some upfront amount and some paid over the next 3 years. Okay, what is that exactly? Are we doing 50% upfront? Are we doing 30% upfront? Are we doing 80% upfront? What aligns with what is appropriate in our industry? What will foster the value proposition to advisors? If you're looking for folks that are really looking to cash out, especially if they're not going to be involved going forward, they may be looking for more upfront and not want to take the risk of the back end. If you're looking at younger folks who are coming in, and when I say younger, it doesn't age is not necessarily the thing, but who are earlier or have a longer runway and are going to be working with your company, they may be less concerned with taking all their chips off the table. They may be more interested in and willing to take less there as long as there's more back end upside, right? So if you know those things, then you drill down onto exactly how much up front, how much on the back end, how many years, what are the contingencies as you build your actual deal structure, right? Then obviously your deal structure is going to be memorialized in deal documents prepared by your attorneys. And listen, the ideal scenario is you do this whiteboarding session, right? We do this whiteboarding session with clients, then we create a template set of documents that they have in place, they know they're in place, and then they go, look for deals and look for deal partners. And the reason why that's ideal is that when you have somebody who's interested, if you don't have your act together, or if you don't have your documents together, whether that's the LOI to send out right away, whether that's the due diligence process, whether that's, getting definitive legal documents to them, you don't look as professional. And if you can do multiple deals, you want to come across as somebody who knows really what they're doing and has their act together, right? So that's the ideal scenario. Now, listen, practically, there's obviously a downside in that you're spending legal fees to get all these template documents together without any deal in place. And what if you never get a deal? So you have to take, that risk if you're going to do it. Most of the folks that we're doing are, serious enough about this that they know they'll find a deal, so they're willing to make the investment. But, some are not, right? And then also practically, some of them have already started going down the path of looking for deals. Like we had one recently, they were already in discussions with somebody. I sort of pulled them back and explained the value of the whiteboarding session. And hey, we got to go back to why, whatever. They totally got it. They were on board. We scheduled and did the whiteboarding session. Actually, the morning before they were going in, that afternoon after we did the whiteboarding session that morning, they were going in to actually have a meeting with a potential seller. And, it was great that we did the whiteboarding session because they were much better prepared. And that moved much more quickly than they thought. I got an email right after, that same day saying, hey, those guys are ready to go. We didn't, we thought the process would be longer. So now, they don't have their template deal docs. They don't have whatever. That's fine. It's the reality of entrepreneurial life. And what's going to happen is we're going to build documents for this particular deal that will also then form the basis of the template documents, that they will use for other deals. It'll be a bit of a scramble, but we've been there before where we'll get them done and it's okay in this particular scenario because this particular seller happens to know that they're newer in the M&A game in this space. They have credibility because that they've have had successful businesses in adjacent spaces. So that's no secret. And this firm knows that they are early in, that they're actually going to be the first deal that these folks do. So, practically, listen, you do what you need to do and you figure it out as you go. But if you want to talk about what the ideal scenario is, you figure out the model, figure out the deal structure, you build out the template documents, you're ready to go. And then, the deal team gets out there, whether it's, internal or external, and starts looking for folks that fit that avatar or that ideal target that you've identified. You're clearing the value prop, you're putting it out there, right? Then obviously, the next steps after that all is negotiating the deal, getting it closed, integrating it. And then one of the things that we talk about is actually, sort of socializing the deal out, right? Who are the key stakeholders, and making sure it's communicated in the right way, whether it's to the customers, the clients, the internal employees, because there are things you can mess up on that. And that's part of sort of the back end of the whiteboarding conversation. But in order to get to the point where you're going to be ready to get deals done, these are the elements that I wanted to focus on. And again, listen, whether you work with us or anybody else or do it on your own, I would strongly, strongly, strongly recommend that you go through this process. Don't skimp on it. Start with the why. And I will say something on the why. Obviously, there are company objectives in the why, but if you are the entrepreneur, executive team, whatever, owner, founder, I really want you to go inside and look into the personal why on what you want to happen here. Because as regular listeners have heard, I always say, why are we entrepreneurs if we're not creating the companies that we want to create, that's going to create the life that we want to have? So your personal why is relevant as a founder, and that applies in driving your M&A or other deal process. So with that, I'm going to call it. I hope this is, and listen, I know it's been valuable to every single person of the many, many, many whiteboarding sessions. I have a couple more scheduled coming up that we do with clients. So, please go through this process when you're looking to put together any kind of deal plan where you're going to be doing multiple deals, whether that's M&A or anything else. It will really, really serve you. Until next week, when we'll have another great guest, Corey Kupfer signing off.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. If you are interested in finding out more about my law firm, the services we provide to entrepreneurial and growing companies across industries all over the country, and my partner Brian Megan and I, and my amazing team, just head over to kupferlaw.com. That's kupferlaw.com. And if you want to follow more of my content, head over to my LinkedIn page where I post regularly. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.